Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Harold?
Absolutely fantastic. I'll tell you, the Law and Order. This has become such a weave in our wave. I mean, it's just amazing how many years this show has been a part of our lives.
Yeah, can you imagine? They did it for 21 years. 20 years, and then now we're doing the 21st season. And they took a small break, and then SVU surpassed it as the longest running show, and we're on its heels. It's an incredible pedigree to be part of.
What is it like to be a part of that storyline? Because I mean, people in all honesty, Jeffrey, when people look at you, they look at your character. They see him.
Yeah, Cosgrove is a thorny detective, and like he says, he speaks his mind. He's very old school, and I think old school has some negative connotations to it, as it should. But I think what's interesting about him, especially being paired with Anthony's character of Bernard, is Bernard's there almost like a guiding force, of saying, you know what, dude, it's a new world, and as it should be, and we've got to wake up to some new realities, and the way we did things in the past just don't fly anymore, and you got to be smarter. And I think that's what's kind of the cool angle that the writers have put, is he might be old and crusty in his ways, but he's smart enough to see the writing's on the wall. You can't do that anymore. And what is reminding of his kind of mantra is he wants to just find the bad guy. It doesn't matter who it is, just find the bad guy. And that's what kind of bonds Bernard and Cosgrove together.
And on this side of the flat screen, we want him to find the bad guy too. And I think that's the reason why we're so glued to the storylines.
Yeah, I think I had said this to someone else. I said, you know what? He might ruffle people's feathers, but who do you want to find your,
Right.
the perpetrator of the crime against you or your family? Who do you want? You want the guy who's like pencils and saying there's too many files, or do you want Cosgrove? And I think most everyone will go, I want Cosgrove on my side.
Yep. See, and right away I have this flashback of Dragged It. Just the facts. Just give me the facts. And that's what's so fancy about this, is that it's like it's almost like Twitter speak in a way. It's like, let's just get to the point. Let's get to the story. Let's make this happen.
Yeah, it's very succinct, very to the point, and its story is king. Mr. Wolf and another great artist that I worked with of his generation, Mr. Eastwood, they say story is king, and it's not, it couldn't be put better. We're just, our characters are going to be unique and exciting and challenging, but it's always going to be the story of the week is someone was killed. How are we going to solve that?
So when you guys took that break, did it rejuvenate you? Did it replenish the creative force in a way of saying, okay, we had a chance to go live the life, go learn some new street speak and stuff like that, and now let's get back into this action?
I don't know. I don't know what anyone has learned other than me, is to say, it took a pause for whatever reason it did, but now I think that there is a new energy. There's a new excitement. And a whole new cast other than Anthony and Sam. There's a whole new cast that brings it a new, fresh look, and maybe it's going to be an exciting another 20 years. Who knows?
Well, I'm shocked that you guys have not made that transition to true crime podcasting in the way that, because I could sit there and just listen to the show and still just envision everything going on.
Well, that's interesting. You should actually pitch that and produce it. Create the podcast Law and Order, and all it is just our audio.
Yeah, and that's becoming a big thing right now, where the storytelling isn't necessarily journalists. What they're doing is they're hiring actors to do voiceover work, and I feel like I'm like right there in the moment.
Oh, that's interesting. I've listened to quite a few podcast stories, and I got into them. There's I don't know if I'm gonna blank on a lot of the names that I've listened to, but they're quite compelling. When you put your headphones on, you kind of disappear into that world.
So true, so true. So when you get your scripts and stuff like that for each episode, do you try to solve the crime as a regular everyday person before you get to the end, or do you allow those words to say, okay, I've got to, I can't put myself into this. It's got to be the detective that takes this script over.
Yeah, as an actor, you just have a job to do. You're not the viewer. We don't get the luxury of kind of sitting back and going, "Oh, I wonder what's going to happen." You have to investigate into the role, what the story is trying to kind of depict this week. What the writer's intent. But I do something that I don't know if people know this. I don't read the order last 30 pages of the script because I want to watch the show.
Yep.
So I do my job as the cop, and I work on it, and I read the script. But when it gets over to the order side, and Hugh and Odelia and Sam take over, I actually put the script down because I want to see it. I become the fan of the show, and I want to see if they're going to be found guilty or not.
Oh my God! It's like the master is the student.
I don't know. I'm definitely the student part. I don't know about the master.
So when you sleep at night, do you hear that infamous sound? Because you're surrounded.
No, but when we're on the show though, we often at the end of a scene we'll go dunk dunk. It's our own little internal punctuation.
How has binge watching television changed you as an actor in the way that we can go on to streaming and pick up any year, any season, and pick up, because when you're meeting people and stuff like that, they may be in season 3 and it's like, oh my God, how do I catch up here?
Right. Or you've seen it all and they're on episode 2.
Yeah.
And that's also the flip side danger of it. Well, it's the only thing that really has changed is I've started to say things like, what episode are you on Ozark?
Yeah.
Before I even start talking about Ozark, or something like that, because you don't want to, give away a huge plot twist, It hasn't changed me as an actor at all, what streaming has done at all, because the craft is the craft. You do what you do, and, you memorize your lines and you try to be truthful, and, you play, and, and hopefully the actors that you are opposite bring it so that, you can play opposite them. And so nothing has changed, just the format and the platforms. That's how the viewing has changed, but not the craft.
Have the writers ever planted any thoughts inside your role, and then all of a sudden you go, wow, I'd like to exercise this out there in the real world?
No, I remember when I was doing Bird Notice, I'd get an interesting spy tip, and that go, I'd be asked, do you ever try that out in real life? And I'm like, no, I'm not a spy. I'm not a detective. I'm just an actor pretending to be one.
Do you ever look at real news and think of things like that? Like you say, wow, we could cover this on Law and Order, or we've already done that. I already know where this is going.
I think this show is true to the rip from the headlines, pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, this week touches on your kind of business of radio broadcasting, and the shock jock says some inflammatory things and causes someone to go do a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is the source of that inflammatory remark liable? And it's a debate about free speech. So I think it's really a fascinating world that we live in. Sometimes you say, hey, I didn't cause that person to do anything. And then other people hide behind, no one takes what I say seriously, so you can't use it against me. So it's an interesting debate about what the power you guys have of, do you want to be considered taken seriously, or is everything that you say meaningless? So it's an interesting debate.
Interesting that you bring that up, and I'll probably have to use this episode in my lectures at universities, because I always say that people on the radio are more powerful than a Southern preacher, because we can get you to buy things, we can get you to call us, we can get you to do things that a preacher can't do.
Yeah, but also, when you bring up an analogy of a preacher, I think what a preacher is doing is very specific, and it's on a specific day.
Yep.
And you are in a sacred, house. And for the most part, I think for a great deal, you are trying to make someone feel better about who they are and act better in life.
Yeah.
Hey, let's all slow down for a second. Let's all unplug for a second. Let's all take a breath and maybe be kind to one another. For some reason, for whatever argument you have, that doesn't get advertisers, or that doesn't pay the bills. So you have to say things that might be inflammatory at the least and incite at the worst. And so you can see that it's not in people of certain positions' best interest to be blasé.
Do you think
there's
that's
a
because of?
conundrum there.
Do you
There's a
think that's?
conundrum.
Do you think that's because it's the power of theater of the mind, that once we plant inside that mind and we can sit there and influence it? Because I'm not a shock jock. I don't have the guts to do that kind of stuff. But I did grow up through the Howard Stern years.
I can't speak about the power that you have or the susceptibility of the viewer. I can't. I'm not running tests, with millions and millions of people. All I can say is that intent. What's your intent? A preacher's intent is probably to spread kindness.
Yep.
And those who are trying to sell something may not be trying to sell kindness. That's as general and as specific as I could probably be an authority on.
Yeah. So for you to go from role to role, going from TV to movies and working with someone like Guy Ritchie, what is that like for you and your imagination? Because at one point in time, you were a child who had a dream of becoming that actor.
Here's a funny, boring story. When I was a kid, and I watched movies, and I would watch, Jimmy Cagney, or I would watch Jimmy Stewart, or I would watch, a spaghetti western of Clint Eastwood. I thought real. Obviously, they weren't really shooting real bullets and killing people, but I thought their roles, in the grand sense, the roles, that's who they were. That's what they did, and the bad guys. That role of a bad guy, that's not who they were in their person, but that's their role of being a bad guy.
Yeah. And
the hero in the John Wayne was the good guy. So it was always confusing to me. Then I saw the good guy and the bad guy on the red carpet being nice to each other. Yes. I thought, how strange it must be to have to fake that you like one another. I know it's a weird metaverse that I lived in, that the good guy and the bad guy had to live those roles in real life. So that is a boring way of saying I didn't actually know acting was a profession. I didn't know that you got paid to do it. And so very early on, someone had to tell me, hey, dingbat, they're just pretending, they're acting, and they get paid to do that. So that was an exciting time for me to know, hey, this is a profession. I can actually go act and study and learn how to do that. So that was a kind of a fun thing to know that I could make it possibly one day as an actor. And now, 35 years later, because I guess I was like a 15, 16-year-old boy when I was thinking that, here I am on billboards playing a good guy, trying to catch bad guys.
Man, you drew the picture of, I always freak out when I see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers together. It's like, no, don't talk to each other. I don't want you to talk to each other. Come on, stop it.
Yes. Yes. Or Pedro Martinez and Barry Bonds hugging. Like, I'm like, wait a minute. That's so weird.
Jeffrey, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
It was my pleasure, and I really enjoyed it.
You bet. Be brilliant today.